So, the translations are out for My Hero Academia, manga chapter 343, and let's just say that from what we see with this chapter, the war is about to begin, and from what we saw, we got some major reveals about All for One's plan, as well as a horrible betrayal that you probably wouldn't have seen coming. And we'll talk more about that, but first, right after this. Hey guys, how's it going? It is your boy, Manga Man Drew, and I'm here to do my manga review for My Hero Academia, manga chapter 343, titled Let You Down. And unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on who you are, this chapter does not let you down because this was a really good chapter of My Hero Academia. There was a fair amount that happened in this chapter. We got a major reveal when it came to All for One and his plans for the world. We got a horrible betrayal when it comes to Aoyama. We even got some backstory and lore for a very unexpected character and potentially reasoning for why this all is happening in the first place, as well as just the final part of this chapter just being two major double-page spreads involving both the heroes and the villains, showing that this war is about to begin. So let's dive right into it because there is a lot that needs to be said about this chapter, starting with the first part of this chapter involving All for One and some backstory for how he's able to do what he has been doing. So to start off, we get an explanation that All for One does have a lie detecting quirk, which is very important for his plans because the only way that he can really guarantee that the people that are under his employ won't betray him is if he had a quirk that prevented them from lying. And we see that in this chapter, it is revealed that he does have a quirk like that. But what's even more interesting is that it is a quirk that apparently has grown stronger by being a part of All for One, but also potentially belongs to the ancestors of Tsukachi. Because a few things that we need to know. We do not know if Tsukachi himself has a quirk, but we do know that he has a sister in the Vigilantes manga that does have a quirk involving lie detecting or a polygraph. And All for One says that he was able to steal a quirk from an ancestor and that ancestor's descendants are working alongside All Might. So with that pieces of information out in the ether, yeah, he does have a lie detecting quirk and that he has the ability to sense if someone is lying or not. And this is very crucial to his plans because of that ability. He was able to quote unquote deduce that both Aoyama and his parents were not lying to him, and how when he contacted them in code about how he wants a 40-year-old wine that has matured in a 16-year-old barrel, hinting at he wants All Might's quirk of One for All, and he also wants it to be brought to him via Deku, and how he says and that he needs to bring it to him tomorrow, which they do. And he notices that both him and later on Aoyama was not lying, but yet they were able to trick him. So how are they able to trick All for One without setting off his lie detector quirk, whatever it may be? Well, there are a few explanations for it, but most of them actually revolve around Shinzo. And that's mainly because of the panels that we see of both Aoyama and his mom. We do not see their entire face. We do partially see Aoyama's mother's eyes, but they seem to be white and lacking any life in them, which is very akin to Shinzo using his brainwashing. But we did learn during Joint Training Arc that he's unable to use brainwashing to cause people to speak, but there are two solutions to that. One, he either trained his quirk to be able to allow people to speak, which I think is very unlikely, or two, he actually used his support item to mimic his voice, and we know that his voice does not transfer well through electronic devices, so maybe that is a flaw of All for One's quirk, how it cannot tell the difference between a lie or truth if it's being obstructed by a different mechanism. So yeah, that's also a possibility. It could be that he was trying to tell if the mother was lying, which she wasn't, but the information that he got wasn't from the mother, so that's why his lie detecting quirk didn't go off. So yeah, that was some very interesting information that we received at the beginning of the story that builds into what we see later on with the major betrayal. Because for most of what this chapter was, it was just a conversation between Deku and Aoyama, where Aoyama is perceived to have betrayed Deku once again after revealing All For One's plan, which can be summed up as he decided to take over or destroy Japan and have that affect the entire world, have the entire world abandon Japan, and then have the entire world fall into ruin so that he could eventually come in and save the day in a sense. Basically, he created a problem and then is going to be the solution to the problem. So he's basically late stage capitalism or Apple or both. He's probably both. And that's the general gist of it, but it seems to be not actually his plan, but at the very least, we do get an idea of what his plan was and how it was going to lead him to becoming the Demon King. And once again, it seems as if Aoyama has betrayed Deku and his friends, but in actuality, the betrayal was on All For One. Because we see that he strikes All For One with a laser, where we actually get to see All For One's new attire. He actually has a new face helmet, which makes sense because he's unable to breathe on his own, and the mask will most likely help him breathe. But he also has a newer design. He has a very fancy suit, because of course All For One would have a suit, but he actually begins taking the suit off, or the suit jacket off at the end of the chapter, revealing a sort of like Kevlar-like vest, or at the very least he's wearing a vest underneath it. So basically All For One is like, I know I'm about to start a war, but I want to look good doing it. So the major betrayal of this chapter actually occurred between All For One being betrayed by Aoyama and Aoyama declaring that he is going to save everyone. He's going to save his parents, and most importantly, he's going to save himself from All For One's grasp. And this actually ticks All For One off a little bit because he begins to question like, wait 1 second, how the heck was he able to do this in the first place? Like, I literally have a lie detector quirk. Oh, you know what? That doesn't matter. I have villains on my side. There are no heroes here. You're all alone. One for All is right in front of me. I'm just gonna take it. So basically, All For One got arrogant, as he always does, and it kind of bit him in the butt because he even becomes more arrogant when he sees a black mist appearing behind him, as we get to see that he brings in a whole bunch of villains with his like sludge quirk that allows people to be transported. That is actually the premise of Warp Gate's quirk that is now in Kurogiri. And we do get to see the villains coming through the portals or this black goo. We actually get to see Toga, Dabi, Shigaraki, as well as some smaller villains that we may have seen throughout the story, specifically like the sort of like weasel guy with like the face mask covering his face. But when it comes to the Warp Gate, we actually do not see Kurogiri coming out of it, as to All For One's surprise, but we actually get to see Monoma, as he has apparently brought a whole bunch of pro heroes to fight against the villains, showing that the war has begun. So yeah, a lot of speculation that happened last chapter, something I didn't make a video on because I thought it was very obvious that Monoma is going to be playing a role, and that this may not be the role that Hirokoshi said that he's going to be playing. It could be that he plays a bigger role in the story, but he is playing a role nevertheless. And it makes sense. He has the ability to copy quirks, even when it comes to like physical quirk mutations, as we saw with Eri. So it makes sense that he was able to copy Warp Gate, because Warp Gate, from what we understand, is not a quirk that requires something to be stockpiled. So this is the role that Aoyama is going to play, and that he played a role in the bigger goal of the heroes, causing the villains to fight on their terms. Because even though they are going to go into a fight right now, they're not doing it out of surprise or the villains attacking them. They are doing it on their own accord. They planned for this. And now with their plan about to come to action, we're most likely going to see another stage of the plan occur, which is the separation of Shigaraki and All For One. So overall, I thought this was a really good chapter of My Hero Academia. There was obviously a lot of dialogue, a lot of exposition, but at least for some of this exposition, it makes a lot of sense. All For One is definitely the type of character to talk to himself and boast about how great he is, as well as how he can't be defeated, and how if something bad happens, it's fine, that it doesn't matter because he's going to win. That all makes sense for his character. So getting that understanding of where the lie detecting quirk comes from and how he's able to use it makes sense for the character to think about, because that's just in his personality. He's very arrogant about it. He has an ego, so of course he would talk about how great he is. And even when it comes to the exposition with Aoyama, it was shown that to all be a ploy, to all be a trick. So explaining it to Deku and causing it to require a lot more time made it so that All For One would get cocky and bring the villains to them, so that Deku and the rest could bring the heroes upon the villains and have the fight occur on their own terms. So that makes sense as well as just getting to see certain characters about to go into the fight, specifically that we get to see Miruko's new arm and it looks amazing, as well as we get to see a lot of characters, and now we can pretty much predict who's going to be matching up against who, and most likely the war and the fighting is going to be beginning next chapter. So that's going to be very exciting. So yeah, that's all I really have to say about this chapter. Hopefully you enjoyed the chapter. What do you think is going to go down next chapter? Do you think that we're actually going to go into the fight? And who do you think is going to fight? Who do you think that we're going to see fight first? Me personally, I think it's going to be Miruko. I think she's going to be the one to start the fight. So just leave your thoughts down in the comments down below. And if you like to see more content like this, subscribe if you want to see more. Do all that cool stuff. And hopefully I'll be able to catch you in my next video. Goodbye.